from there. So every one of us, please help me welcome Lisa to the call. You can just wave your hands or clap your hands and just show some sign of appreciation. Thank you, Lisa. It's so good to have you here. It's a privilege also for you to be amongst us to share your experiences with all of these tools with educators. And I believe that every one of us will learn a great deal from you. Thank you. You can go ahead and share your screen.
Thank you, Rutimi. Good morning, everyone. It's been very interesting this morning, so thank you for to all the other speakers as well. It's been definitely eye-opening, and I've been sitting there like, I maybe agree with that, and maybe some of the things that I'm going to say in my presentation today actually maybe go a little bit against some of the things that have been said today. But I'll kind of dip in and out on what has been talked about today and yesterday. So just to give you a little bit of background, I feel like I'm like this mere mortal teacher who is in the presence of absolute greatness, because my experience with AI is rather limited. So today I'm going to be giving my views based upon how to use it in a classroom with students, any age, any background, whereby they have personalization and lots of student choice. That's kind of part of my educational philosophy. And one of the reasons that I kind of delved into artificial intelligence this year is because I took 3 years out of education to raise my daughter. I'm with my husband, no family or anything in Malaysia, so it was a little bit difficult to do that. So I took some time out, and then coming back, I was like, whoa, only a few years, and there's basically been a technology revolution. And so, the more I read into it, actually, this has happened a few times during my career as a teacher. Calculators were about when I was a teacher, but computer technology, Google, and now artificial intelligence has just completely exploded in terms of what we can do with it in education, but it obviously does pose some difficulties for us as well. And so one of the things that was talked about today that I noticed was, will AI replace educators? And, there was a bit of yes, it will. And I'm kind of saying the opposite. I'm saying that I feel it could. And there definitely is an argument for that. But for it to be used authentically and meaningfully, we need educators, we need bodies, warm bodies in the room. It's more important than ever. And so basically, I'll kind of be going over with you today how to guide your students in using AI. So the kind of 3 things that I'll be looking at today is ChatGPT, Canva, and Flint. So obviously ChatGPT and Flint has been well discussed. So I'll not really go into the ins and outs. I'll just kind of talk about it, how I used it personally and how you could use it in your educational settings. And Canva, I will kind of just put out a disclaimer here. I had actually used another program called MageSpace, but when I was kind of making sure that all my links were working and everything for today's presentation, I noticed that MageSpace is just completely different to how I used it before. So this coming school year, I'll be using Canva, and it was kind of a personal goal of mine to figure out how to use Canva properly and to its full extent anyway. So yeah, just bear in mind that I'll be talking about Canva today, but there is also another program called MageSpace, which is useful as well. So one of the things I kind of want to delve into with regards to ChatGPT is when I was kind of reading about it, and one of the things that I didn't realize is that it's actually been around a little bit longer than I thought it had. I thought it was, brand spanking new to us last year. One of the things that I have been looking at is its natural language processing capabilities. I work with students from all over the world and currently, and in every single school setting that I have worked in, it's been a very diverse group of students globally. And so I thought, well, that's really interesting and very helpful for us as teachers, and I'll delve into that a little bit. But if you want just now, so I've given you a little prompt there that you can copy and paste. What I can do to make it maybe easier is I can give you the PDF link. So I'll give you some links to the presentation that I'm sharing with you today. I'll just put that in the chat and you can feel free to use that if you wish. That should be it there, I think. Yeah, there we go, right at the bottom. So if you want, you can go into ChatGPT and just copy that prompt. Please summarize ChatGPT in terms of its natural language processing capabilities and various applications in educational settings. And so when I first started out this year, I thought, what sorts of things can I use ChatGPT for? Like, surely it's going to be very helpful. And I was kind of Googling and I thought, well, why not ask ChatGPT? So it gave me this really nice summary using that specific prompt there. And it also told me about those natural language processing capabilities as well in terms of its language understanding. One thing that I just want you to note is if you are typing that prompt into ChatGPT just now, compare your answer that you have in ChatGPT to what I have there on the screenshots on the presentation. It may be a little bit different, and this is just something that you have to bear in mind when you are teaching your students. It is personalized, so their questions will be answers specific to what they've asked. But what I mean is sometimes it's really helpful to give them specific prompts, especially if you're a little bit tight on time. So if you want them to find out specific answers, it is quite nice to just give them prompts. But even within that, you're going to get kind of varied answers. So it's just something for you to think about. I'm not saying it's a negative thing. I like it, but it's just something to bear in mind when you're planning using AI there. So I'm going to go over a number of activities. I think there was maybe 6 activities that I'm going to go over today. Sorry, 7 activities. This is the first one. So at the start of this 2023 school year, so this was bearing in mind I hadn't been teaching for a few years, I kind of did my usual of what I usually do with my classes. I'm a science teacher, so I like to teach them about how to research properly, how to use Google properly and Google Scholar, how to cite the work that they refer to in essays and presentations and things. And this year I included how to use, well, this particular one, how to use ChatGPT properly. So this image here is from Ditch That Textbook, which I had noticed that Ken Morrison had spoken about yesterday. He was actually the person that got me on to Matt Miller and all his Ditch That Textbook stuff. But this is a specific image that I used, and I just thought it was a really good conversation starter with the students. So you can see there it's got a spectrum, if you like, from human generated to AI generated, and it's got some statements there. And this is, if you like, the answer that I was kind of looking for. But even then, it's not particularly, the students might argue that certain things go in different places. So what I did was I printed out, I think it was 4 copies for 4 groups. I cut out the statements and they had to line them up from human generated to AI generated. Once they did that, they then got to go around and see what the other groups did and had an opportunity to change their statements in their spectrum. We then came together as a class and we discussed the statements, and so it was just a really good opportunity for them to think about what is human generated and what is AI generated, it's not so black and white. It is a spectrum. And what is allowed at our school, what is allowed at the university that you're going to go to, what is allowed in, my science lab. And so it's it can be subjective, it can be very open to interpretation, but it is definitely something that all educators, I feel, needs to be discussed right at the start of the year. And so we did this, and it took up a whole lesson, which was fine. So the following lesson, we then did a Socratic seminar. There's a link to a rubric and things that I use for that if you want to do that. Yeah. And so as you can see, even though this lesson was completely about AI, it was a completely tech-free lesson. There was conversations, there was group work, there were, there was handwriting, there was manipulatives. And so this particular lesson could be used by anyone, for anyone. You can differentiate this for higher education, you could differentiate it for elementary. It's a pretty straightforward lesson that I hope would be useful for teachers who are hoping to incorporate AI into their lessons this year. The second activity so that first one, as I mentioned, was done right at the start of the year. This particular one I used with grade 9 at the end of their first unit. So it was the history of life of Earth. Again, this was a completely tech-free lesson. But what I will mention just now is it did actually mean that I had a lot more work to do. I just wanted to do it because as tech-free, because we had a couple of lessons before that were on the computer. So this particular lesson was we were using ChatGPT as a sort of pen pal, if you like, someone to write to. So in the way that I particularly did it, this year, students individually wrote letters to ChatGPT. So they hand wrote these letters. They asked questions about the unit. They shared their thoughts on the unit. It was a very open-ended task, to be honest. I then took in these pieces of paper, and then I read through them and kind of picked out questions and put them into ChatGPT, got the answer and printed them out. And then the next lesson we then discussed. Um, so the students individually got to see their answers, and then we shared them as a group. It was a lot of work on my part. However, what I will share is that it was good in that I got to read through all the students. It also, like, randomly, they gave me a little bit of feedback on how I taught the course as well, which wasn't the whole point of it. But it was just really nice to read all of them. However, it was a lot of work. So what I plan to do is to keep it tech free, but to get a little bit more group work and collaboration involved. So we're going to do group letter writing task instead. But really, again, it depends on you as an educator. It depends on the students you have in front of you, their ability, their age, their background, how many you have. I mean, I did this with a class of, that would have been 15, so quite a small class. But if it's a lot smaller than that, then yeah, it would be more suited to doing individual students. So moving on to the third activity, and going more into what I'd mentioned earlier in terms of ChatGPT's language capabilities. This one's quite a fun one for the students, and it's, as I said, like, so for example, the lesson that I used this in, I had students from China, from Korea, from Saudi, like basically all over. And so, they have their own languages, and within our own languages, we obviously have our own dialect. And what I said to the students was, a lot of people, when I meet them, they go, "You're Scottish, like you don't sound Scottish." And, I don't sound like, a lot of the Scottish people on TV, but within Scotland, we have so many different accents. And where I live and where I am right now, 10 miles down the road is a completely different dialect. And I'm sure that a lot of you can relate to that. So I was like, right, I'm going to see. There's no way ChatGPT will know my specific dialect. So as you can see there on the screenshot, I said to him, all right, you wee hand fit like pally, I just want to kind about ChatGPT, help me out, Bob, which basically means, how are you? Like, darling, how's it going? I would just like to know about ChatGPT. Can you help me, please? And as you can see, all right, pal, fit like. If you're asking about ChatGPT, no bother. ChatGPT is just an AI chatbot designed to help with all sorts of questions and tasks. It can provide help with writing and give general advice. Just let me ken fit you need and I'll do my best to help you out. So it's not completely the same, but a lot of those words are definitely the dialect that I would use. And so I would be interested to know, does it know your specific dialect? And this kind of like leads me into, and I'm gonna get into this in a little bit more detail later. Obviously coming from Europe, the western part of the world, it's going to have a lot more bias towards that. As we all know, AI is bias. And so I would be very interested to know if certain parts of the world, if it did include your specific dialect. Let me know in the chat or the Q&A if you want to comment on that. So that was the kind of first part of that lesson. The second part of the lesson, we were using ChatGPT as a study buddy. So in this particular lesson, we were using computers. As a teacher, if your students don't have access to a device, you can prepare this in advance. Now, even though I work in a school that's pretty well funded, it's we don't really work with a lot of textbooks, but especially when I'm working with AP, where it's a very specific content course, I kind of need, these questions and information. And so I think what's quite useful about ChatGPT is you can put in a specific title of a book. So in this case, I've put, please write 5 questions based on Barron's, who's the author, AP Biology, 6th edition, chapter 2 on biochemistry. So I'm being very specific, okay? And so the students do this. You can do this at any part. You can do it at the end of a unit, you can do it at the end of the year, whatever you like. It can be homework, it can be classwork, whatever. So they were allowed to use broken English in their prompts, so it kind of led on from their dialect. However, the work that they handed in to me needed to be handwritten in English. We are an English speaking school, and they take English speaking exams. Okay, so it's nice. I just feel like it's just creates nice environment in the classroom where it's a little bit fun, but at the end of the day I do want proper answers. And so yep, they put that in there. However, the kind of catch here is with ChatGPT is you can see here that it has generated 5 questions, and it says it's based upon chapter 2 biochemistry from AP Barnes Biology 6th edition. However, this book was actually published, I don't have it with me, like I think it was 2023. So in reality, the version of ChatGPT that I was using doesn't actually know what's in that book. So I can tell from the questions that it's asked, it's actually pulled this from a previous edition that it obviously does have access to. So even though the questions are fine, the particular chapter that I was looking at was only about water, not about other macromolecules. So you can see that it's asking for questions about proteins and things. So that wasn't relevant to the actual chapter that I was asking for. However, you can buy the newer version of ChatGPT, which I believe is 4.0, or it was the last time I looked. And it would be able to help you up until April 2023, I believe. So, again, there's the kind of positives to that, there's the negatives to that. You can use this as a fully tech lesson. You can use this as no tech at all, and it can just be helpful to you. So we're going to move on from ChatGPT, but there are a couple of links there. I could really go on about this all day. One thing I'll not go over today because I want to maybe have a bit more experience myself is how it can help you write tests, and there are a bunch of other activities there as well. So moving on to have a look at Canva, this was part of a lesson which I loved. I'm not going to lie. I did it over 2 lessons, so approximately 2 hours, and it was split into kind of 4 parts. So I've got lesson 1A and B, and then 2A and B there. So Canva, if you're not aware, is it's an online program where you can, I mean, I used to use it to make invitations, and there's a free version. We're lucky enough in our school to have a premium subscription, so it gives you, like more images and more fonts or whatever. But in particular today, what I'm going to speak about is its image generation. And so you can give it prompts and it'll produce an image as a result of that. So, as a biology teacher, I did this as a very kind of basic introductory lesson into pedigree charts and genetics and inheritance. And so basically what the students had to do is they had to choose 2 known celebrities, and then they had to write prompts to create realistic images of their children and then the children's children. So in other words, grandchildren. So we did that for the first part of the lesson. Once these were produced, the students then paired and they shared feedback to each other based upon the rubric that I gave them. Again, for this particular one, it was a very basic rubric, and I've shared that with you in the presentation there. And then they gave each other feedback. And then whilst they were applying that feedback, I then went around the class and also gave them feedback. Again, this is all verbal. So formative feedback, if you like. So that was the first lesson. And then the second lesson, they started making their pedigree charts, and they used Google Drawings for that. But again, you really could use anything for that. And then that last part of the lesson, they used their rubrics again to make sure that everything was good to go. So we've got some examples of student work here. So this is 2 pedigree charts, as you can see. So we've got Yeet with Cardi and Playboy Carti with Ice Spice. The kind of interesting thing about these particular activities is I get to know who they're into. So, it really goes kind of beyond AI at this point. And as you can see here, one of the reasons I loved this activity is because it really opened up some super interesting and important conversations. One of the main ones that I I touched upon right at the start of the year with them, but they don't really get to know it until they kind of experience it, is the bias that we have in real life and specifically AI that I had mentioned earlier. I have a link to a really nice article about that there. That took up a lot of time in our lesson, us talking about this, and it kind of led on to a lot of other really important topics such as racism and skin color. It was really nice in that I found out about their families. And then we got down to what we should have been learning about, right? Inheritance, genetics, nature versus nurture, and how to produce a pedigree chart, essentially. Um, so my kind of point here is we used AI to do this, and it was super fun for the students. Honestly, I do kind of feedback forms on a lot of activities and things, especially if they're new activities. And I didn't have one negative feedback for this. It wasn't perfect, and I plan on making it better for next year. But yeah, really enjoyed it in terms of the conversations that came out of it. So, apart from making pedigree charts and the likes, you can use it for a lot of other things, such as creating flashcards and other materials. I plan on using it for an evolution project this year, whereby I just got the students to draw a mutated organism, whereas this year I'm going to get them to use the AI. I just didn't have time to incorporate that in this year. So there's a couple of other activities that you can have a look at as well. So lastly, we'll move on to have a look at Flint and how I used this. So Rotimi had sent out an email to the teacher saying, there's this new program. And I was like, all right, I'll just have a look because, it's something I'm interested in. And to be honest, it came at the best time. I was organizing prom and graduation, and I still had to study with the students. And I wanted to do something meaningful and personalized whereby they had choice. And I was really struggling, and I'm not going to lie, I was like, right, I'm just going to do like old-fashioned, like straightforward review lessons with them. But when Rotimi sent this, it was like, oh, I thought, great. So I dived right in. Again, my lessons weren't perfect, and I can't wait to make them better for this coming year. So I did it in three sections, like three different lessons that kind of built upon each other. And I did it with grade 9 integrated science and also grade 11 IB biology, both higher and standard level. So that just kind of shows you the range of students that you can use Flint with there. So the first thing I did was the chat tutor. Um, Once I kind of figured out Flint, and it didn't really take me that long to do that. And as I said, I'm not like super tech savvy. I set it up. It was very straightforward to set up. Yeah, and it was personalized to the lessons I had taught. So I'm using the population example. So this was with IB higher level as well as standard level biology. So I just uploaded the PDF of slides that I had made myself into Flint, and it made its own set of rules. You can edit those, very straightforward. Um, for this particular activity, I got Flint to grade, but the students could see the grading rubric, and I just went with the grading rubric that Flint gave me. To be honest, a little bit of time saving, and also I didn't really have any problems with it, basically. And then I gave them quite strict instructions, like very like detailed instructions on Google Classroom. And so you can just read that there. So the point I'm getting at here is, even though it was really easy to set up, but it was specific to the notes that I had given to them, I do feel that, we need to share the rubric with them so they know exactly what they're doing. And also, whilst they were working on that, I was able to see exactly what they were typing in at the time as well. So that's the good thing about Flint there. So I'll give you some examples of the student work there, just some screenshots. So this particular student, I think I can remember who this is off the top of my head, gives pretty detailed answers. And so in terms of the rubric that she had been given, she was kind of following that. And so the AI tutor had given her an A, so the best score you can get. As it mentions there, you can override this and add your own personal feedback, but the feedback that I've given there is actually the feedback from the AI. And so it's really in depth. And what I really like about this is you can create a follow-up tutor and you just press click. Okay, so there we go. Very personalized. The student kind of has choice in exactly what they cover as well. Yeah, I thought it was great. It went really well. No complaints. The next lesson went a little bit deeper, whereby we looked at evolution. So kind of same, but different. So you can see there that the rules are slightly different. The rubric is slightly different. And I've given them the same kind of instructions there again. So if we have a look at the student work there, this is the same student from the day before, and you can see that her answers are better. And I know there's a lot of variables as to why that might be, but I think she was just kind of getting into working with the tutor. It's important to note that I sit there. That was quite a small class, so I was sitting right at their table with them, helping them with prompts. And there was a couple of times they were like, "It's just giving me massive things to read," and I was like, "Well, you have to specifically ask it to ask you questions." That was kind of one of the things that I remember for that. And so, as you can see there, it gives some really great feedback. So, kind of glows and grows, if you like, and again with the follow up. My favorite thing that I used Flint for was this last student activity here. So in IB biology, and at this point, AP biology had finished their exams. This coming year, I plan to use it with AP biology. Both IB and AP have essentially like an extended response. So they do need to practice how to write an essay. Um, this was my favorite thing that I used Flint for, actually. And there was a couple of things that I made different. I changed the helpfulness level. I was a little bit mean, and instead of full, I brought it down to medium. Um, I changed the rules a little bit. The essay prompt is, it contains a lot of detail. One thing that I will mention for the grading is that I took out the fail grade, and I know that's maybe a little bit controversial, but I only had A, B, C, and D. Um, I just felt that with me being right there, the students shouldn't be getting an F. It wasn't a test, it wasn't a summative assessment. However, just to let you know, there is an opportunity for you to put in an F, whereby the student will essentially fail that task. So they still have A, B, C, and D there. I shared the link, and I got some really great work. So I sit with the students, and when they're doing their essay, they're not allowed to go on the internet and copy and paste. They have to sit with their own handwritten notes, or notes that they've produced themselves to write their essay, or notes that I've given them. And so as you can see there, you've got sentences and paragraphs and so on and so forth. It's a great essay, and it's the same student who got the 2 A's beforehand. This time she got B. So this student is an A student generally. So you can see there that you can change up how, I suppose, how difficult it is for them to get something. I actually, when I saw the B, I was like, no, there's no way I'm going to overwrite that. But then I read through the feedback, and what it did mention there. So you can enhance your essay by integrating more detailed visualizations, which is really what the whole point in that particular essay was. And so I thought, okay, fair play, AI tutor. I'm going to agree with you on that. So I did do at the request of the student, because she is very vigilant, if that's the right word, in going after her A's. I did do a follow-up tutor for her, in which her second submission was in fact an A. And so that just shows growth. Yeah, I really liked that particular activity, and I will definitely be using that like more throughout the year. As I said, I just got Flint towards the end of the year, and so I just used it for reviewing for their exams. So I'm looking forward to looking at how to use it better. And I logged in today, and there's a new version, and so I'm excited to see all the kind of new things there. So there's a bunch of other things that you can do that I've given you links to. One of the interesting things that I want to mention to you is, as I mentioned, I do evaluations, and I do a big kind of end of year evaluation based on my teaching. You can see there that for the things that they found effective, it's all very like they liked the labs, they liked making models, and so on and so forth. Things that they felt could be improved, they did mention, or just one student, sorry, one student mentioned that using AI for study is not effective for learning because it is a little hard to use, which that was probably because it was my first time using it, and the actual teacher teaching is more effective for me. So I think it's just food for thought. I'm still going to use AI this year, and I'm excited about improving my lesson plans. But I did think that that was very interesting to hear from the students that they do still prefer us in the classroom there. So based on everything we've talked about, I'm just going to round this up. Some of the strengths of AI, I feel, and that today has been based on, my presentation has been based on, is that it really does tailor to that specific student who is working with the AI. And so it's personalization and it's student choice. However, there is the fact, and this was mentioned in the forum today, that there may be a neglect of social and emotional aspects. However, that kind of leads on to the opportunity there. I feel that educators are crucial in using AI so that we can fulfill those parts. So when we were doing the pedigree charts and the students were pouring their hearts out about the bias that they have come across in their lives before, perhaps ChatGPT would be able to help them with that. That was kind of discussed earlier in the forum today, but I think they just really wanted a warm body to listen to them, and they wanted to bounce these ideas off the other students in the class as well. Lastly, however, though, and this is one thing that I really wanted to be very conscious of today, is that not everyone is going to have equal access. So at the moment, I don't pay out my personal own pocket for ChatGPT, but I am very well aware that the newest version of ChatGPT is the best. And that's just a really small issue for me. But for students who, when I taught in the US, for example, I taught in downtown Dallas, and these students, like, we didn't have laptops. I mean, there was one class I had 42 students and we had 15 chairs. Like, so never mind devices. And so I do worry about that it will just create another inequity in education. And that would be my only vice when it comes to AI. But I will finish up speaking here. Thank you all for listening. I've left you with all the works cited, and there are links throughout that whole presentation that will take you there. But if you do have any other questions, I would be happy to share and to answer.
All right. Thank you so much, Lisa. Can you all hear me?
Yes, I can.
All right, thank you so much. It will be a good time for every one of us to just react and show our appreciation by using the React icons. We really deeply appreciate your time here. I know some of us might be expecting whether she was going to show Flint. Because of data privacy, she couldn't display because she'll be showing actual student work. But the session for Flint later today will be a live demo. And so we'll see the practical way of setting it up and how the interface looked like. So most of the people that did demonstration on and spoke about applications that they are using currently, they can't display it to you because they have student records there, and that violates data privacy. I could do all of those other ones that I did because it's free, it's online, and I created instant account while we were doing those demos. So there was no student records, there was nothing on those platforms. It was the ones that I created immediately as we were going through the demos. So just have that at the back of your mind as we go through this training. People that come online to share and they are using those tools, they might not be comfortable with showing you their dashboard because you'll be having access to real student data. Anyways, do we have any questions? I saw some hands are raised up. If you could coordinate that, let's take any of the questions we have before we put an end to this session, and then we'll go on break for 30 minutes and be back for the afternoon session. Do we have any question? While we take those questions, I will just pull up, I'll share my screen.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Miss Gloria, are you there?
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right, go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, I sent it. I've typed it.
Okay.
Okay.
Did you type it in the chat? In the chat?
Yeah, it's the chat. Yes.
It seems the question has been attended to.
Okay. I was asking that how can one use multiple tools to teach grammar for the AI multiple tools to teach grammar in high school with high school students?
Okay, Lisa, do you want to speak to that? Yeah, we got that. Lisa, do you want to speak to that?
Teaching grammar.
Okay, so grammar, so like, is
like
it
clauses,
for English,
for example,
or
in English?
Yeah. Okay. So, specifically for English, I feel I always wanted to be an English teacher, but my parents wouldn't let me go and study English at school, so I had to go and do science. And so I always think that, oh, if I was an English teacher, I would definitely use this. And I feel that it's really accessible to English teachers. So for things like grammar, it would be quite interesting as well to maybe get your students to pick up on any mistakes that ChatGPT or any of the other kind of AI tutors have as well, because they are not perfect by any means, because they're working on a kind of plethora of different types of English. So yeah, I think there's definitely lots of tools for AI to teach grammar. And if you go on to it's called Ditch That Summit, I think it's the link on the sixth slide. It's called Ditch That Textbook, sorry. That website specifically there has really nice kind of subject specific free resources, and that's where I've gotten a lot of my resources, and they definitely have a lot for teaching English. Yeah. So
I think let me say a few things here. First, one of the ways you can teach literature, reading or English with AI is if you have specific area of topic you want to cover, you can either get the students to write an article or write their articles based on those vocabulary. If you're interested in testing and assessing or teaching them on some vocabularies, you can get them to get AI to write articles based on those vocabulary. And then in classes, you get them to critique or improve on those articles. That's one way. Another way is I'm going to do a demo in the next session that I'm handling on Reading Coach. It's an online platform, and that will also be able to, you can use that too. But you can also, on your own, generate articles, especially if you are focusing on clauses. You can go to any AI platform and ask for ideas on how to teach those clauses. And the generative AI will give you a lot of ideas. You can, if you have a book, for example, that you are working with, and you have a digital copy of it, you can upload it and ask it to give you 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 ideas. I will demonstrate one of it also on how to ask that. You can ask it, okay, can you generate 10 ideas, both offline and online ideas, together with activities on how to do this? And then it will give you all of those ideas. Then you take whichever one you want and then engage it for that to say, okay, I want, rather than just ideas, now I want activities that could be handled with this particular one that I preferred. So it breaks it down for you and give you suggestion. Then you as a teacher, knowing your student, knowing the context and the different levels of your students, you can now take that and then put in your own input as the person that is in charge of the pedagogy and the mind behind the class. Then you can appropriate those accordingly. But it's better to start with what you want to do and have that idea of it, and then get the AI to provide you with different options and give you brainstorm with the AI. In the next session, we'll be looking at assistants in one of the platform, which will also be able to use as a teacher to teach literatures and to teach language arts. I think during my session, I will provide more time for question and answer so that we don't eat too much into the time that we're supposed to go on break. I'm just going to share my screen. Lisa, again, thank you so much for being here. It's so great to see you and for you to have this much impact on the participants. If you're done, you can step out while I share my screen and just go through a few slides before we go on break.
Sorry, sir, one more question, sir.
All right, what is it?
Mr. Yusuf Aziz, are you there? OES, are you also there? Could you please go ahead with your question? Unmute yourself and ask a question. Gloria Adeniji, I hope your questions were answered. Yusuf Aziz, this signal, OES, are you there? Okay, Mr. Arab today, you wanted to ask your question. Are you still there?
All right, I think we can just round up this session. Did I stop sharing screen?
Right.
Who set up? Somebody set up a timer. Who's sharing screen? Lisa, are you the one sharing your screen?
I don't think so, Rotimi.
All right, no problem. So just to round up this session, like we mentioned earlier on, we'll keep this conversation going on. So once every month, we'll be having a Teach with Tech series webinar. It's also going to be free. We'll be bringing in a lot of educators to show us how to, and then we'll be focusing, those are the sessions where we'll focus more on, have longer time and be able to focus more on some of those tools. I also mentioned that, so for the first Teach with Tech series, we'll be looking at crafting effective prompts, the foundation of AI-assisted learning. We've learned a lot about, we've heard a lot about prompt engineering. So we'll be looking at having a 1.5 hours to 2 hours webinar series where we will focus mainly on this, and it will be very hands-on. We would announce that everybody come online with their laptop, and we'll be giving activities that we'll do just to guide us through those processes. We also mentioned about the fact that we're doing a survey to onboard educators to help with providing feedback, what you would like to see in an AI-driven app that will be focused mainly on our environment as educators in Nigeria and in Africa. So the links will be shared in the group. Please just fill the survey. And one of the benefits of this will be if you go through the entire process from start to finish with us, whatever app comes out of that, you'll be able to have a lifetime license to use it at your whenever you are able to. So we'll be back in another 30 minutes. We've eaten into that for like 7 minutes, but we'll be back by 1 p.m. We'll start the session with a panel discussion focused on secondary and primary school. And then I'll go into a hands-on session on some of the tools we didn't finish up yesterday, and one more particularly that can be used both in school and at home. And then the next session after that will be a hands-on session on Flint, and the CEO of Flint will also be participating, will be the one walking us through that. Please bear in mind that all of these apps are free, but you can use them, and there is nobody is getting paid to get anybody on or to be part of this program. It's all free, and also the presenters are also the volunteer to just be there for us and be impactful to us. So we'll see you guys in 30 minutes. Thank you very much. The session, we'll keep the call on so you don't have to struggle with joining back again. But the live stream will end now, and then we'll transition into the afternoon live stream for those of us that are online. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful 30 minutes break. I'll see you back in 1 hour. Thanks a lot.
Comment ọkọ mi látàárọ̀. Ah!